Hello there, sword friends. Today I want to do a video response to Matt Easton at Scholagladiatoria. Some time ago he did a review of a Dynasty Forge O-KATANA, and I thought it was a great video. I'd encourage you to watch it. I'll link it in the description down below. I commented on a point that I actually wanted to make, but I figure since I YouTube that a video response is maybe more appropriate and helpful, frankly, to the conversation. And in that video he noted, I suppose, a point that one, a shorter 27-inch blade. I have this here representing, forgive the audio, hopefully the wind isn't picking it up too much. I have this shorter Chinese reproduction sword representing a shorter sword, and in a nutshell he noted that a longer sword may be proportional to a person me and Matt's size. So we're both about the same size at a little over 6 feet, and that an O-KATANA may represent to us and give us similar feelings that a 27 or smaller sword would to a smaller person some years ago using it in Japan. So I'm not a historian, I don't understand, I don't know how tall on average people were in Japan or even what size swords they were using, but the logic of a shorter person using a shorter sword may be able to move in a particular way that's more similar to a taller person using a taller sword, that the blade has some proportionality to it, that as you both increase in size, more similarities will exist. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but hopefully you get what I'm throwing down. The other point that he made is that an O-KATANA may impede in your ability to execute and do and train on some traditional swordsmanship styles, if you're doing kata or iaido or something like that. So that's true, but I think it also can be very helpful, and I will try to illustrate why, and that's, I suppose, the point. Using a longer O-KATANA, which is what this O-KATANA shaped object is supposed to be. It's not an O-KATANA, it's not a katana, but it's got enough of the same features that you can pretend along with me here. That a sword of this size does require me to do some traditional techniques, and allow me to illustrate here. So if I point my hips forward and I try to deploy this shorter sword, you'll notice that I don't have to move my hips at all. The reach is enough for me to get the sword out without doing anything. I can deploy the weapon without moving my hips, without pulling the scabbard back at all. And that doesn't mean I have to do that. I can certainly do the technique properly as well, but the tool isn't requiring me to move the lower half of my body. I only have to move my arms. Alternatively, if I use this O-KATANA shaped object here, well, in this particular case, if I draw my sword out, it's not enough. I can't get the sword out just with my reach. If I pull the scabbard all the way back, I'm still not quite there. This is usually enough with a 29 and a half inch blade. I can usually get it out at this point, but with an O-KATANA or a 32-inch blade, I really have to move my hips to get the sword out of the scabbard. And so it forces me to do that technique more properly, or at least it's a not so gentle reminder that I have to move my hips and it's not optional, and it helps me learn the technique. And so that's where I think it can be a helpful training tool. If you are a taller person, then a 32-inch blade is a not so subtle reminder that you have to move your hips when drawing it in order to do the technique properly. I study a couple different styles of Japanese swordsmanship, and forgive the wind, hopefully it's not interfering with the audio too much. I study a couple different styles of Japanese swordsmanship, and one, I'm allowed to move the blade in and around my sash quite a bit. It comes in and out of the obi, I pull the scabbard back, and in the other I don't. But in both of them, I have to move my hips. One assumes that the scabbard is pretty stationary and isn't going to slide in and out of a sash, but in both of them I'm required to move my hips, and I just generally forget about it. I usually will bring a blade to class. I bring a lot of different blades to class when I actually go. The pandemic has put a damper on that, certainly, but I train with a lot of different swords because I do sword reviews and I get a lot of different samples, and I play with a lot of different types, and the shorter ones certainly allow me to cheat in that technique. And when I move back to a longer sword, it's a not so subtle reminder that I'm not doing it correctly, that I'm not incorporating parts of my technique. Now in class I'll get my hand slapped when I'm not doing it with a shorter blade, but at home I can tell because I can't get the sword out if I don't do it right. Anyway, again, this is not a tutorial necessarily. I'm not trying to show you how to draw a sword. I'm not qualified to do that, but it does certainly illustrate the point that here I have to move my hips in order to do it, and that can be a helpful thing in training. Now, I would also say be very cautious. I'm using sharp swords here. Saibiki, it's very easy to kind of torque the sword and pull on it, and swords are sharp, and if they cut through here, it's possible it's going to cut into you. So, I mean, train safely. Talk to your teacher about what tool to use if you have one, and just, I suppose, be safe about it. But know that if you're doing saibiki and you get a sword that requires it and you go really fast, it's really easy to cut through a scabbard and into yourself, and that's bad. So anyway, there's your tip. I probably should have put that at the beginning, frankly, for anyone still watching. But that's all I've got. Hopefully it's been an interesting video, or at least some additional thought. That's all I've got. As always, cheers and thanks for watching.